Hey, gorgeous souls, I'm Sarah, and I'm about to tell you the most insane wedding day story that literally destroyed my perfect life in front of 250 guests. I thought I was marrying the love of my life, my fiancé Jake Morrison, in what was supposed to be the happiest day of my existence. But 30 minutes before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, a woman with 2 children showed up at our venue claiming to be Jake's wife of 7 years. But here's where it gets absolutely unbelievable. Jake didn't just have a secret wife and kids in Arizona while living with me in California for 3 years. He had an entire second life, complete with a mortgage, joint bank accounts, family, photos, and even another engagement ring that he'd given to his other fiancé just 2 months before proposing to me. By the time the truth came out, my perfect wedding became a Jerry Springer episode. Jake lost everything, and I got the most epic revenge story ever told. This story has everything: bigamy, financial fraud, 2 devastated families, and the kind of public humiliation that destroyed a man who thought he could live 2 separate lives forever. Y'all ready for this chaos? Because this is how my dream wedding became my fiance's worst nightmare. Beautiful souls, let me take you back 4 years ago when I met Jake Morrison and thought I'd found my soulmate and the man I'd spend the rest of my life with. I'm 29 years old and work as a marketing manager for a tech startup in San Diego, California. I met Jake at a mutual friend's barbecue, and honestly, it was like something out of a romantic movie. Jake was this gorgeous, successful sales manager for a medical device company, and he seemed to have everything together: great career, beautiful apartment, close family relationships, and this incredible ability to make me feel like the most important person in the world. Jake told me he was 34, originally from Phoenix, but had moved to San Diego about 4 years earlier for his job. He said he'd never been married, had no kids, and was looking for someone special to build a life with. Our relationship moved pretty quickly because everything felt so natural and perfect. Jake was attentive, romantic, and seemed genuinely interested in building a future together. He'd talk about wanting to get married, buy a house, and maybe start a family within the next few years. What made Jake seem so perfect was how stable and grounded he appeared. He had a consistent work schedule, owned his own condo, had a close relationship with his parents who lived in Nevada, and seemed to have his finances completely under control. About 6 months into our relationship, Jake explained that his job required him to travel frequently for sales conferences, client meetings, and training seminars. The medical device industry is really competitive. Jake would tell me, I have to maintain relationships with hospitals and clinics all over the Southwest. Sometimes I'm gone for a week or 2 at a time, but that's just the nature of the business. Jake's travel schedule seemed legitimate and consistent with what I knew about sales jobs. He'd usually be gone for 7 to 10 days per month, visiting clients in Arizona, Nevada, Utah, and New Mexico. During his travel periods, Jake would call me every night, send sweet text messages throughout the day, and always brought me thoughtful gifts from wherever he'd been working. I miss you so much when I'm on the road, Jake would say. These business trips remind me how much I want to be home with you, building our life together. I actually admired Jake's work ethic and dedication to his career. His travel schedule never felt suspicious because he was always transparent about where he was going and when he'd be back. After dating for 2.5 years, Jake proposed to me during a romantic weekend getaway to Napa Valley. The proposal was absolutely perfect. He'd planned this elaborate surprise with rose petals, champagne, and a beautiful speech about how I was his best friend and the love of his life. The engagement ring was gorgeous, a 2-carat princess-cut diamond that must have cost at least $15,000. Jake told me he'd been saving for months to buy me the perfect ring because I deserved something as beautiful as our love. During our engagement, Jake seemed more excited about wedding planning than I was. He'd research venues, suggest photographers, and even had opinions about flower arrangements and catering options. I want our wedding to be perfect, Jake would say. This is the most important day of our lives, and I want every detail to reflect how much I love you. We decided on a beautiful outdoor wedding at the Sunset Ranch Resort in Temecula, about an hour north of San Diego. The venue was expensive but absolutely stunning, with mountain views and gardens that would create the perfect backdrop for our dream wedding. Jake insisted on paying for most of the wedding expenses, claiming he made more money than me and wanted to give me the wedding of my dreams. You shouldn't have to stress about money on your wedding day, he'd say. Let me handle the finances so you can focus on being the most beautiful bride ever. Throughout our relationship and engagement, Jake maintained what seemed like normal family relationships that never raised any red flags. Jake's parents, Robert and Linda Morrison, lived in Las Vegas and visited us in San Diego several times during our engagement. They seemed to genuinely love me and were excited about our upcoming wedding. Sarah, you're exactly the kind of woman we hoped Jake would find. Linda would tell me. You're smart, successful, and you make our son so happy. We can't wait to welcome you to our family. Jake also had a younger sister named Amanda who lived in Denver with her husband and 2 kids. Amanda and I had developed a close relationship, texting regularly and planning to spend more time together after the wedding. What seemed especially sweet was how Jake would include me in all his family communications. He'd put me on speakerphone during family calls, include me in group text messages, and always made sure I felt like part of the Morrison family. Jake's family seemed completely genuine in their excitement about our wedding. They'd helped with planning, offered to contribute financially, and had already booked their flights and hotel rooms for the wedding weekend. The month before our wedding was incredibly busy but exciting. Jake seemed more stressed than usual about work, claiming he had several major sales deadlines to meet before taking time off for our honeymoon. After the wedding, I want to focus completely on being your husband, Jake would say. I'm trying to close these big deals now so we can start our marriage without work distractions. Jake's increased travel schedule in the weeks before our wedding didn't seem unusual given his explanation about work deadlines. If anything, I appreciated that he was trying to clear his schedule for our honeymoon and the start of our married life. Our wedding was planned for Saturday, October 14th at 4 p.m. We'd invited 250 guests, including family members from both sides, college friends, work colleagues, and neighbors who'd become close friends. The rehearsal dinner on Friday night was absolutely perfect. Jake gave a beautiful speech about how grateful he was to have found me and how excited he was to start our life together as husband and wife. Tomorrow is going to be the best day of my life, Jake told our wedding party and families. Sarah, you've made me the happiest man alive, and I can't wait to call you my wife. I went to bed Friday night feeling like the luckiest woman in the world, completely confident that I was marrying my soulmate and best friend. I had absolutely no idea that my perfect fiancé was living an entirely separate life with another woman, and 2 children 350 miles away in Phoenix, Arizona. Gorgeous souls. Saturday, October 14th, started as the most beautiful day of my life and ended as the most devastating betrayal I could have ever imagined. What was supposed to be my fairy tale wedding became a nightmare that destroyed everything I thought I knew about the man I loved. I woke up at 7 a.m. in the bridal suite at Sunset Ranch Resort, surrounded by my bridesmaids, my mom, and my sister. Emily, who was my maid of honor, the morning was absolutely perfect. Mimosas, laughter, professional hair and makeup, and that excited energy that comes with knowing your life is about to change in the most wonderful way. My wedding dress was a stunning strapless ball gown that had cost $3,500. And when I put it on, I felt like a princess. My bridesmaids were crying happy tears, my mom was beaming with pride, and I felt more beautiful and confident than I ever had in my life. Around 10 a.m., Jake texted me, "Good morning, my beautiful bride. I can't wait to see you walking down that aisle. Today is going to be perfect. I love you more than words can express." I texted back, "I love you too, my handsome groom. See you at the altar in a few hours. This is the beginning of our forever." The photographer was capturing every moment of our morning preparations, and everything was going exactly according to our carefully planned timeline. By 2 p.m., I was completely ready. Hair, makeup, dress, jewelry, and bouquet all perfect. The ceremony was scheduled to start at 4 p.m., which gave us time for some final photos and last-minute touch-ups. At 3:30 p.m., exactly 30 minutes before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, there was a commotion outside the bridal suite. I could hear raised voices in the hallway, including what sounded like children crying, and a woman demanding to speak with someone about Jake Morrison's wedding. My maid of honor, Emily, went to see what was happening, and when she came back, her face was completely white. "Sarah," Emily said quietly, "there's a woman outside with 2 kids who says she's Jake's wife. She's asking to speak with you." I laughed because the idea was so ridiculous. "That's impossible. Jake's never been married. Someone must be confused or at the wrong wedding." But Emily's expression was deadly serious. "Sarah, she has documentation. Marriage certificate, family photos, the works. She says Jake's been living in Phoenix with her and their kids for 7 years. My heart started pounding as I realized this might not be a case of mistaken identity. Against my bridesmaid's ad, I decided I needed to speak with this woman directly to clear up whatever misunderstanding was happening. I walked out to the resort's lobby in my wedding dress, followed by Emily and my mom, where I found a petite brunette woman named Maria Rodriguez holding the hands of 2 young children. a boy who looked about 6 and a girl who looked about 4. Maria was clearly distraught but determined. When she saw me in my wedding dress, her eyes filled with tears. "Are you Sarah?" Maria asked. "Are you the woman who thinks she's marrying Jake Morrison today?" "Yes. I'm Sarah, and I am marrying Jake today," I replied, still convinced this was some kind of mistake. "But I think you have the wrong person. My fiancé has never been married." Maria pulled out a folder of documents and photos. "I'm Maria Rodriguez Morrison. I've been married to Jake Morrison for 7 years. These are our children, Diego and Sophia, and this is our marriage certificate from Arizona." She handed me an official marriage certificate, dated March 15, 2016, clearly showing Jake's full name, social security number, and signature. As I stared at the marriage certificate, Maria continued showing me evidence of her life with Jake. Family photos of Jake, Maria, and the 2 children at birthday parties, Christmas celebrations, and family vacations. In every photo, Jake looked relaxed and happy, clearly comfortable in his role as husband and father. Joint bank account statements showing regular deposits from Jake's salary and shared expenses for their household in Phoenix. A mortgage document for a house in Arizona with both Jake's and Maria's names as co-owners. Most devastating of all, Maria showed me photos on her phone from just 2 weeks earlier. Jake helping their son Diego with homework. Jake cooking dinner in their kitchen. Jake reading bedtime stories to their daughter Sophia. Jake told me he had to travel to California frequently for work, Maria explained. He said he was building relationships with hospitals and medical device companies on the West Coast. I never suspected he was living a completely different life. My mom and Emily were standing behind me in shock as I processed this impossible information. At that moment, Jake walked into the lobby wearing his tuxedo, clearly coming to find me before the ceremony started. When Jake saw Maria and the children, his face went completely pale. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. "Maria," Jake said quietly, "what are you doing here? How'd you find me?" "How did I find you?" Maria's voice was rising. "Jake, you told me you were going to a work conference in San Diego this weekend. I only found out about this wedding because Sophia accidentally called your phone yesterday and a woman answered saying she was your fiancé." I stared at Jake in complete disbelief. "Jake, what is she talking about? Are you married to this woman?" Jake looked back and forth between Maria and me, clearly trapped and unable to continue his lies. Finally, Jake broke down. "Sarah, I can explain everything. Yes, I'm married to Maria, but our relationship has been over for years. We've just been staying together for the kids' sake. I was planning to divorce her after our wedding." "Planning to divorce me?" Maria screamed. "Jake, we have sex regularly. We went on a family vacation to Disneyland 3 months ago. You helped me pick out new furniture for our living room last month. What part of our relationship is over?" As Jake tried to explain his double life, the full scope of his deception became clear. Jake had been living in Phoenix with Maria and their children Sunday through Wednesday each week, then traveling to San Diego to live with me Thursday through Saturday. His business travel schedule was actually his method of maintaining 2 completely separate households and relationships without either woman knowing about the other. Jake had been paying for 2 mortgages, 2 sets of living expenses, and maintaining emotional and physical relationships with both Maria and me simultaneously. "Jake," I said, my voice shaking, "we've been engaged for 8 months. We've been planning this wedding together. How could you propose to me when you're already married with children?" "Sarah, I love you," Jake said desperately. "What, Maria and I have isn't real love like what we have. I was going to figure everything out after we got married. I just needed more time. Figure everything out." I was incredulous. "You're committing bigamy. You can't marry me when you're already married to someone else." Maria was crying and holding her children, who were confused and scared by the adult drama unfolding around them. "Jake, how could you do this to our family?" Maria sobbed. "How could you lie to me for years and put our children through this?" Asterisk, beautiful souls. What happened next was like something out of a nightmare. Our private family disaster was about to become a public spectacle in front of 250 wedding guests who had no idea they were about to witness the most dramatic wedding cancellation in history, while Jake, Maria, and I were having our confrontation. In the lobby, wedding guests were arriving for the 4 p.m. ceremony. My aunts, uncles, cousins, and family friends were walking into the resort, all dressed up and excited to celebrate what they thought was going to be the happiest day of my life. Jake's family members were also arriving, including his parents, Robert and Linda Morrison, who were completely shocked to see Maria and the children. "Maria," Linda Morrison said in confusion, "what are you doing here? Where are Diego and Sophia? Supposed to be It became clear that Jake's parents knew about Maria and the children, but had no idea about me or our wedding. Mom, you know about them? I asked Linda, feeling another layer of betrayal. No, about them, Linda replied, confused. Sarah, Maria, is Jake's wife, and these are our grandchildren. We've known them for 7 years. I don't understand what's happening here. Jake told me his parents lived in Las Vegas and rarely saw him. I said, realizing that even Jake's family background was a lie. We live in Phoenix, Robert Morrison corrected. We see Jake and Maria every few weeks. We babysit the kids regularly. I don't understand who you are or why you're wearing a wedding dress. My bridesmaids and Jake's groomsmen were arriving to find complete chaos instead of a wedding ceremony. My best friend and maid of honor, Emily, was trying to manage the situation and protect me from the growing crowd of confused guests. Jake's best man, his brother-in-law Mike, was equally shocked by the revelation of Jake's double life. Jake, what the hell is going on? Mike demanded. Who is this woman? And why are their children here? Sarah, why aren't you getting ready for the ceremony? When Mike learned about Jake's bigamy and double life, he was disgusted. Jake, you've been lying to everyone. This is sick, man. How could you do this to Sarah and to Maria? The wedding party was trying to manage 250 guests who were arriving for a ceremony that clearly wasn't going to happen. Guests were mingling in the ceremony area, completely unaware that the groom had just been exposed as a bigamist, and the bride was having a mental breakdown in the lobby. I realized we had to make some kind of announcement to our guests before the situation became even more chaotic. Standing in the middle of the resort lobby in my wedding dress, surrounded by Jake's secret family, I felt like my entire life was falling apart. Jake, I said loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear, you need to choose right now. Are you going to stay married to Maria and be a father to your children? Or are you going to somehow divorce her and marry me? Because you cannot have both. Jake looked panicked and overwhelmed. Sarah, I need time to think. This isn't how I wanted this to happen. Can't we postpone the wedding and figure everything out privately? Postpone the wedding? I laughed bitterly. Jake, you're already married. There is no wedding to postpone. You can't marry two people. Maria spoke up. Jake, I'm taking the children home to Phoenix. When you decide what you want to do with your life, you can call me. But Diego and Sofia don't need to see their father destroy 2 families in one day. As Maria gathered her children to leave, our wedding guests were starting to realize that something was seriously wrong. I had to make the most humiliating announcement of my life to 250 people who had traveled to celebrate our wedding. Standing in front of our guests in the ceremony area, still wearing my wedding dress, I said, everyone, I'm sorry to inform you that there will be no wedding today. I've just discovered that Jake is already married with children, and obviously, we cannot proceed with a bigamous marriage. The reaction from our guests was a mixture of shock, confusion, and outrage. My family members were devastated and angry. My father looked like he wanted to physically attack Jake for humiliating me in front of everyone. We knew. Jake's family members were mortified that their son and brother had been living such an elaborate lie and causing so much pain to multiple families. Several guests started taking photos and videos of the chaos, which I knew would end up on social media and make our private disaster even more public. The resort staff was trying to manage the situation professionally, but they'd clearly never dealt with a wedding cancellation due to bigamy before. As if the emotional devastation wasn't enough, I soon discovered that Jake's double life had also created a financial nightmare. Jake had been using credit cards and loans to fund his expensive double life, including paying for 2 households, 2 sets of living expenses, and our expensive wedding. When I confronted Jake about the wedding expenses he'd claimed to be paying, I learned that he'd been using my credit cards and taking cash advances to cover costs. Jake, where did the money for this wedding come from? I demanded. You said you were paying for everything, but I've been seeing charges on my credit cards for months. Sarah, I was going to pay you back after we got married, Jake said weakly. I just needed to borrow some money temporarily to cover the costs. For both households, I realized that Jake had stolen my identity to fund not just our wedding, but also his life with Maria and the children. Jake had opened credit cards in my name, taken out loans using my information, and had been stealing from me for months to maintain his elaborate deception. The wedding that I thought Jake was generously paying for had actually been funded with my own stolen money. When I discovered the identity theft and financial fraud, I called the police to report Jake's crimes. The Riverside County Sheriff's deputies arrived at the resort to take statements and begin investigating Jake's bigamy and fraud. Ma'am, what you're describing constitutes identity theft, credit card fraud, and potentially bigamy. one officer explained. These are serious felonies that can result in significant prison time. Jake was arrested at our wedding venue in front of our guests, family members, and the resort staff. Watching my fiancé get handcuffed and put into a police car while wearing his tuxedo was surreal and devastating. Our wedding day had become a crime scene, and our guests were being interviewed as potential witnesses to Jake's fraud. Gorgeous souls, the week after my destroyed wedding was a blur of legal consultations, financial damage control, and planning the most comprehensive revenge against a man who had destroyed multiple lives with his selfish lies. 3 days after the wedding disaster, Maria called me from Phoenix to discuss how we could work together to make Jake face consequences for his actions. Sarah, I know this is awkward, but we're both victims of Jake's lies, Maria said. I think we should coordinate our legal actions to make sure he pays for what he's done to both our families. Maria and I met with attorneys and discovered that Jake's double life had violated numerous laws and given us multiple avenues for legal action. We filed joint criminal complaints for bigamy, identity theft, credit card fraud, and child support fraud. We also filed civil lawsuits for emotional distress, financial damages, and fraud. Maria and I became unlikely allies, united by our shared experience of being manipulated and betrayed by the same man. As authorities investigated Jake's finances, the scope of his crimes became even more shocking. Jake had been stealing from both Maria and me for years to fund his expensive double life. He'd opened multiple credit cards in both our names, taken out personal loans using our information, and had been systematically draining our bank accounts. Jake had stolen over $125,000 from me and over $85,000 from Maria to pay for 2 households, travel expenses, and his elaborate deception. He'd also been claiming false tax deductions for dependents and household expenses, committing tax fraud that added federal charges to his growing list of crimes. The financial investigation revealed that Jake was living far beyond his means, and his double life was financially unsustainable. Jake was charged with bigamy, which is a felony in California that can result in up to 3 years in prison. The prosecution was straightforward since Jake's marriage to Maria was clearly documented, and our wedding attempt was witnessed by 250 people. Jake's attorney tried to argue that Jake had intended to divorce Maria before marrying me, but this defense fell apart when evidence showed Jake had been actively maintaining both relationships simultaneously. Text messages, photos, and financial records proved that Jake was fully committed to both relationships and had no intention of ending either one. Jake was convicted of bigamy and sentenced to 2 years in prison plus probation. Maria and I each won substantial civil settlements against Jake for the damages he'd caused to our lives. I was awarded $275,000 for identity theft, fraud, emotional distress, and wedding expenses. Maria was awarded $180,000 for financial fraud, emotional distress, and child support violations. Jake was also ordered to pay restitution for all the money he'd stolen from both of us. The civil judgments meant that Jake would be financially responsible for the damage he'd caused for years to come. But my most satisfying revenge was ensuring that Jake's deception became widely known throughout our social and professional networks. I created a detailed social media post explaining exactly what Jake had done, including photos of his marriage certificate to Maria and documentation of his crimes. The post went viral within our community, with hundreds of shares and comments from people who were shocked by Jake's behavior. Jake's employer fired him when they learned about his criminal convictions and the negative publicity surrounding his case. Jake became unemployable in his industry because his reputation for deception and fraud made him a liability for any company. Several news outlets picked up our story as an example of modern bigamy and the dangers of online dating and social media deception. Maria filed for divorce from Jake and was awarded full custody of Diego and Sofia. She also received the house in Phoenix and most of their shared assets as part of the divorce settlement. Maria returned to school to finish her nursing degree and has built a successful career while raising her children as a single mother. Diego and Sofia are thriving with therapy and support to help them understand why their father had to go away. Maria and I have maintained a friendship based on our shared experience and mutual support through the legal process. The wedding cancellation and betrayal were initially devastating, but ultimately led to positive changes in my life. Used the civil settlement money to pay off my debts and start my own marketing consulting business. I also wrote a book about recognizing deception in relationships, which became a bestseller and led to speaking opportunities. My experience with Jake taught me to trust my instincts and ask more questions when something seems too good to be true. Now, in a healthy relationship with someone who values honesty and transparency above everything else, Jake served his full prison sentence and was released as a convicted felon. With no job prospects and massive debt from restitution payments, he lost his house, his car, and most of his possessions to pay legal fees and court-ordered damages. Jake's relationship with his parents and sister was permanently damaged by his lies and the public humiliation he brought to their family. He occasionally sends letters asking for forgiveness, but neither Maria nor I respond to his communications. Jake went from living a double life of luxury and deception to being a broke, unemployable ex-convict who destroyed everything he claimed to love. I learned that some people are willing to destroy multiple families to satisfy their own selfish desires, and that the truth always comes out eventually. Jake thought he could maintain his elaborate deception forever and have the best of both worlds. Instead, his lies cost him his freedom, his relationships, his career, and his future. That's how you handle someone who tries to live a double life at your expense. Y'all, you expose their crimes, prosecute them fully, and make sure they face every consequence they deserve. Sometimes the best revenge comes from simply making sure the truth is known and justice is served. Asterisk and gorgeous souls. If this story resonated with you, if you've dealt with deception or betrayal in your own relationships, I want you to know that you deserve honesty and respect from the people you love. Trust your instincts. Ask hard questions. And never ignore red flags just because you want something to be true. Asterisk, if you want to hear more stories like this, more tales of relationship, betrayal, wedding disasters, and ultimate justice, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. I post new revenge stories every week. And trust me, y'all are not ready for some of the relationship drama I have coming up. Your support means everything to me, beautiful souls. Every like, every comment, every share helps me reach more people who need to hear these stories. Because sometimes, knowing that someone else survived betrayal and came out stronger is exactly the inspiration we need to rebuild our own lives. So smash that subscribe button. Leave me a comment telling me about your own experiences with relationship deception. And let's build a community of people who refuse to accept lies and manipulation from anyone. I'll see you, gorgeous souls, in the next story, and remember, you deserve someone who chooses you every single day, not someone who treats you like one option among many.